Hey y'all, welcome to Poly Side Eye with me and Jared. We were back with another episode. I wish we could have had this episode on Juneteenth, but this is when the story broke. So today's topic was inspired by something that happened on Juneteenth, and it was an announcement by Swiss Beats and Timbaland, and they're photoed with Elon Musk, and they're talking about, ownership, and they're saying that, they have 100% control over Versus now. It's going to be distributed over Twitter or X. And yeah, a lot of people were annoyed by it. It was a lot of backlash. But before we get into it, how have you been? I always ask that in the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, I've been good. So good to see everybody again. I've been well. I just got back home on Saturday. I was in Yorba Linda, California, which is in Orange County. So y'all might be like, why were you in Yorba Linda? Well, I was at the Richard Nixon Presidential Library and Archives doing some research for my book. So I was there yeah, for almost 2 weeks, just rummaging through archival material so I can incorporate it into my book because I'm trying to finish that within like the next few months. And so I just had a few more pieces of the puzzle that I need to try to fit together. And so yeah, but I'm well, all back. Yeah, I'm excited about the episode.
Nice. And y'all see he got the arms out. Look.
Yeah, I feel like, so I missed the heat wave. Apparently, it was like 90, almost 100 degrees in the Northeast last week. So I missed all of that. So, which I don't mind. I don't like when it's like that hot. So,
Yeah, it was scorching. And I had to work outside in the heat this past weekend. Anywho, Jason Derulo has nothing on him, y'all.
is he still a
But
thing? He like made a living on TikTok for a while. I don't know. Is he still like relevant? Well,
he's
not like, particularly relevant, but like social media relevant.
he's still making a living off of TikTok. I'm not sure if he's relevant musically, but there's a lot of people that like him.
More you know.
But yeah, before we get into the topic of verses, I just want to talk about like Juneteenth in general because I don't remember it being such a celebrated holiday like, back in my day, which I'm glad that it's, a federal holiday. But have you noticed the commodification of this holiday?
Yeah, absolutely. So Juneteenth was always a much more localized thing, especially in Texas, because the history of Juneteenth is essentially that's when or should have been formerly enslaved people in Texas found out that they were no longer enslaved following the Emancipation Proclamation. But this came like way after the fact. And so it's always been a big thing in Texas. And growing up, being that I was in like southwestern Louisiana and I had like family and went to like Texas a lot, I had heard of it, but we never celebrated it or anything. And so I think really the reason that we have Juneteenth is, I mean, it's really an artifact of timing. So if you remember, George Floyd was murdered, I think, in the last week of May or maybe early June, thereabout. And then the protests were around the same time. And so it just so happened like Juneteenth was something to be like, let me give y'all niggas something so y'all get out the streets. Like, and so honestly, if that would have happened in like December, I don't think we would have gotten Juneteenth as a holiday. And so I think that's one of the fascinating examples of like how history is often very accidental. Like, it's really just a matter of like timing. And I think we don't think about that aspect enough.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't even think about that. It did happen around that time.
Yeah, no, literally, like that was one of the first, well, one of the first things Congress did, kind of to like acknowledge the incident, was that they authorized Juneteenth to be a federal holiday. I mean that's actually pretty monumental because I don't know the last time we've actually had a declaration or a law making a new holiday, maybe MLK Day. So, and that was back in the 80s, and so like you've literally had almost what 30 plus years without a new federal holiday. And it really was a matter of like circumstance more than just like it's not like anybody was out in the street like protesting for it. At least with the MLK movement or with like the movement to make MLK a holiday, you could say that there was somewhat of a movement. Like the reason that Stevie Wonder made the Happy Birthday song, it was supposed to be a push to make that MLK Day a holiday. But that was in like 1980 and it didn't become a holiday until years later. And so that wasn't the case with Juneteenth. It went from something that pretty much nobody outside of like Eastern Texas knew what it had ever heard of to something that, people get off of work now. So But it's definitely commercialized. I mean, it's not like Congress took the opportunity to implement some educational program to like explain people the history of Juneteenth or anything like that. So most people are just like, oh, cool, another day off from work, which to me kind of is like, well, what are we gaining from this aside from corporations another opportunity to like put in a kente cloth in their emails and stuff. So yeah.
Going back to the Stevie Wonder Happy Birthday song, that's the origin of it for Dr. King's birthday.
Yeah, so if you listen to the lyrics of the song, it's like he's explicitly saying, it doesn't make much sense that we could have like pretty much explaining why we should like revere Martin Luther King and like have a holiday to like celebrate. It's just that people don't listen to the verses, they just listen to the chorus. But like if you actually go and pull up, like if you Google the lyrics right now, it's very obvious that it was a campaign to like make MLK Day a holiday.
I know some of our viewers probably knew that, but you know what? I'm gonna admit it, I did not know that.
Yeah, so I mean, the fact that we got a federal holiday out of a holiday that most people didn't know, there's actually some polling research which shows like most people had never even heard of Juneteenth, let alone knew like the historical significance of it. But yeah, like I said, corporations can now be like, oh, we're great because we give our employees off for Juneteenth. Like we still are not going to pay them anything, but like at least y'all get off for this holiday that y'all don't even know anything about.
Right. Moving on to our main topic. So, what happened on Juneteenth, which, something else that was eye rolling, was just seeing this pop up. And when I saw it on Instagram, my comment was like, read the room. Like, it just seemed really tone deaf. This is what it said. It's official. Versus is back and 100% Black owned again. Let's give the people what's been missing. We will also be building new entertainment businesses on the X platform. Who should be the first kickoff show? Let's go versus on X. Now, I bet when they posted this and the cheers with Elon Musk, and it looks like they're on a yacht.
Wait, can you read like a few of the comments? Because I feel like some of the comments pretty much captured the general sentiment.
Right. Trying to force Black people back to Twitter with music while you've made the site a playground for straight up white supremacists is an insult to our intelligence. Basically saying it doesn't matter how we treat them as long as we give them a hot beat to dance to. Some other ones, they said on Juneteenth, of all days, a South African colonizer on Juneteenth, just musty.
Wait, South Africa? Oh, Elon Musk. I was like, what? Okay. I thought they were talking about Swiss Beats at first. I was like, wait, he's South African. Okay, got it. Yes.
Another comment said, this is so disappointing. So many powerful Black people in this business want to be white adjacent so badly. I hate to see it. And then y'all post the shit on Juneteenth like this is a good thing. It's just the tone deafness that's deeply concerning to me, more concerning than the deal itself. Shout out to Black musicians who remain in alignment with their sense of community and their sense of integrity, even if it's at the expense of popularity, because this is crazy. I think in their head, they were just thinking, oh, this is 100% Black owned, Black wealth. Like, you should still root for us because we're Black and we're in these spaces. And I know how the look on your face, but yes, I always feel like people expect, like, no shade to Beyonce, but Beyonce, Jay-Z, all these people that have the power to get things done. And like when people see new billionaires and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I get the sentiment. So I just don't buy the premise. So, like, I don't expect Black people who are rich to not act rich. Like, my first expectation is that people who are rich are going to act like rich people. Like, it doesn't matter if you're Black, white, or whatever. Like, because the thing that people don't understand about class, like, we have an inverted sense of like what class is. I think because of the way that we can really only discuss class in this country is through like media. And so like media representation. So like we don't engage with like very wealthy people on like a regular basis. Sure, we might be in spaces where people are wealthy, like, but that's not like our day-to-day experiences. Like none of our closest friends are like, at least as far as I know, are like super filthy rich and they don't, come from like tons of generational wealth and stuff like that. And so like I think that it's hard for us to understand that like class isn't just an identity or the way you identify. Like class, it structures the way that you experience the world. Like it structures the way that you understand the world, what you believe that how the world should be, like what's good, what's not, et cetera, et cetera. So like for Jay-Z or like Swiss Beats or people like this, they believe in capitalism because it works for them. Like they're wealthy. Like they don't have a reason to have like a systematic critique of capitalism. That's why I'm always like telling people like don't depend on rich people's charity for social change. It's not going to happen. Like we should
Ooh.
be more concerned that almost everybody in Congress is like very wealthy. Because why? Because they're going to pass policies to ensure that first and foremost their wealth is not affected. Now they might pass other policies that help other people, but that's going to be unintentional consequence of that. That's never going to be their main priority. It's not because they hate poor people. It's not, well, they might. We don't know. Like, I can't tell what's in somebody's head or how they feel. We could deduce that, but like, there's no way to verify that. And so I'm not really interested in like being like, oh, they do it because like they don't care about poor people or like Black rich people don't care about like the Black community. No, like it's not about what they don't care about. It's about what they do care about. In this case, they care about preserving and expanding their wealth. And somebody might say like, oh, well, isn't there a point at which like enough is enough? Like they have more than enough. But we've known since like the age of Aristotle that wealth corrupts your psyche. And like there is never a point at which you actually feel like you have enough. Wealth is addictive and we should think of it as such. And so the more of it you get, because it's also tapping into a desire. And like the way that our desires work is you don't ever satisfy your desires because like that's why they're desires. Like part of what makes you desire something is the fact that you don't have it. And so like being wealthy means you're just always in this hamster wheel wanting more and more of it. And so I think for them, like Jay-Z or Swiss Beats or any of these rich people, especially rich Black people, because so social change is always delayed in the sense that the economic changes typically happen before our social norms and like expectations catch up to it. And so I think we're still stuck in like 1958. I think we're stuck in this period in which we think that there is like a Black community that somehow, I don't know, nobody's ever been able to explain it to me. Maybe you can do a better job, but like somehow there's this like cohesive Black community within which everybody can eat essentially, as long as we like look out for each other. And I'm like, there's almost 40 million Black people in America. And not only that, but like it's also becoming much more demographically diverse. Like a third of Black people in America are now either immigrants or children of immigrants, which means that they're going to have qualitatively different understandings of like what Blackness and like the Black community is. And so I think we're still clinging onto this idea of like that there's like unitary Black group or Black community that we're all on the same page. But then we have like these knuckleheads like Swiss Beats who essentially forget the memo that they're Black first. I'm just like, no, but they're rich. Like, and they're gonna act rich. So I don't know. That's my perspective. I don't get, actually, I do get why it's so hard for people to accept that, but I think people would be less devastated or less disappointed if they just accepted my first premise, which is that we should expect rich people to act like rich people first.
Right. When I saw it, I wasn't surprised at all because just Swiss Beats has that air about him. He tries to give this notion that I'm for the people, power to the people. Like, I care. Like, I'm doing this for us. Like, this is a bigger plan, Like, it almost kind of mirrors when people were looking at Jay-Z side eye when he had that deal with the NFL. And they were just like, Hove is playing chess, not checkers. Like, it's always that excuse.
Well, I mean, I don't even think it's about him like fronting or anything. Like, I legitimately think that they are helping, quote unquote, the Black community. I think they genuinely think that. It's not even a matter of like them trying to pull a fast one or anything like that. It's just that, again, if you think about the fact that wealth distorts or I wouldn't say distorts because that makes it seem like there is some real reality out there that they just have on some like, rose-colored glasses or something. It's not that. Like there is no like objective reality out there that we just all are unsearching, trying to find. Like that's not how it works. Like we all have different realities based on our own like sociological experiences, like how wealthy we are, our racial status, our gender, geographically where we live, what we do for work, if we believe in some type of like religion or have some type of metaphysical commitments, which we all do to varying degrees. Like all of that is going to color the way that we view reality. And so like for them, the reality is the way that you make people's lives better is by like becoming wealthy. But that's very consistent with like capitalist ideology. It's very trickle down. It's very a rising tide can lift all boats type thing, which we've shown through years that that's not legitimate. But like, you can't beat ideology with a reasoned argument. That's why it's ideology. And so again, I don't think it's a matter of them just like being clueless or like tone deaf or trying to like mislead people or anything like that. Like, they're doing what they think is right. It's just what they think is right is like capitalism. And so like, what I think would be more productive is if we had a society in which people could debate the merits of their assumptions about capitalism. So like, what do you think capitalism is doing? What do you think that owning versus is doing for not only you, but like Black people more broadly, since you think that there's some kind of relationship between the two? Like, we should be able to have a reasoned discussion about that, but like, we can't, because like, where are we going to do that?
I just knew they just thought, oh, we did this. It's on Juneteenth. It's 100% Black owned again. It was in all caps.
No, I mean, so one thing I try to impress upon my students when I teach my Black political thought class is that there has, for as long as we've known, as long as Black has been a category or a way of like describing somebody, Black people have always had different views of what it means to be free, or like what justice or equality or all these questions. They've all differed on that. So you've had Black people who are capitalists, which we can talk about. The book recommendation for today is a book called The Black Bourgeoisie.
I
Uh,
knew you were going to do that one.
yeah, which is, I think, Phil, it came out in the 50s, but it still holds up. It's like one of the, to me, one of the seminal texts on like Black class differences, which I feel like Black people are afraid to talk about this, but I think now is the time to talk about it, because there is more class differences within Black America, or what we call Black America, than there have ever been at any point in American history. And so I think as that continues, which I don't think there's any reason for us to expect that not to continue, because our society as a whole has become much more unequal over especially the last half century, but really throughout much of the 20th century. And so like, you can't forget about that. Like, you have to take that into account. And I think what you're seeing is an example of there's a clear difference between how people in a certain class strata, in this case, the strata that like Jay-Z's and Swiss Beats come from, and like everyday people. And even among the everyday people, there's still differences, because there are probably people who that message actually resonates with. They actually probably believe that that's a good thing for the Black community as a whole. And so like, I think it's important to look at those gradations.
So he responded to all of the backlash. He said, but nobody said anything before we've been on that platform since Versus started. You will see my intentions as always. We must change what we don't like, not complain about it. We go hard since the 90s. People will soon see the plan. I understand that people have questions, and they will also understand I'm not a silly person. He also pointed out the irony of critics using X to voice their complaints, adding, but you're on X.
Okay, so I hate that argument, because you can't quit capitalism. Like, what do you want people to do? Like capitalists own pretty much all of the technology platforms in this country, the devices that we use. Hell, like in a lot of places, the water provision. Yeah, so like, what do you want people to do? Like, go live in a bunker? Like, I don't. So to me, that's a red herring. Like, that's, to me, it's a cop out. Like, it means that you don't want to actually have a reasoned discussion about like what your views of capitalism are, and like why you believe that Black people are going to benefit from you owning this platform. Also, like, who cares about Versus anymore? Like, Versus hasn't been relevant since like the first season of the pandemic. So like, I don't get like, do people like, when was the last, like, who are they gonna do? Like, they're not gonna get, like, Beyonce's not doing the Versus, or
Right.
Rihanna. They're not gonna get the big names. So like, what's the point at this point?
That's what I'm wondering. I feel like they shot their goo with the Brandy and Monica. Unless they started adding white people to it, and I don't think they do that, or they're
Well,
going
yeah,
to.
that would fly in the face of the reason that it's being Black owned. So like, isn't the whole idea it's supposed to be like, oh, for us, by us type thing? So like, you start having white people on it, then like, it's gonna call into question like the whole like reason that Versus was a thing in the first place.
I mean, even though I would love to see Pink versus Kelly Clarkson, like
That's
we
an
we
interesting.
can't have a versus for pop because it just wouldn't work.
See, Versus. Versus was a moment. The reason people love Versus because it was so organic. It was legitimately people we grew up listening to, just like in their house, just like talking to each other on live, like pretty much reminiscing. And we felt like we were a part of that. But then once it started putting like they had Verses with like Doritos chips and
Yes.
shit in the background, I'm like, it's so commercialized now. It's like it doesn't have the same like it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, it got worse and worse, like with Doritos and then Ciroc in the background. Somebody got paid, like who's getting it started off so great. And capitalism ruins everything.
Well, the thing is, like, we forget that, like, when you do things at scale, like, the quality necessarily suffers because you are having to produce a lot more for a bigger audience, which means, like, you can't afford to, like, maintain that same quality at scale unless you just have tons of, like, capital, which most people don't, or most businesses don't. So, like, the first thing that usually suffers from the result of, like, scaling up is quality.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
I actually don't want people to be disappointed by this because one thing that I think, and this might be a somewhat of a spicy take, but whatever, like y'all don't know me in person, so like, what's the worst that could happen? Um, but I want people to like let Black people be whatever they want to be. In this case, if they want to be capitalists, let them be capitalists. To me, part of the issue with Blackness is that we tend to homogenize it, which to me does the disservice to like people, like allowing them to be full individuals. Now, if they want to be a part of a system that is exploitative and all the other things that we know about it, like if they have a justification for it, like let them have that justification. But like I just feel like the whole trying to shame them and all of that is like played out. First off, it doesn't change anything. It's not going to work. And then also, like, it forecloses a bigger conversation about, again, the fact that there are very real inequalities, not only in America, but within the Black community, so called itself. So, like, we should be able to talk about why is it that somebody like a Swiss Beats is a proponent of, these capitalist ideas, whereas other people, presumably who have to work for a living, i.e., have to sell their labor for a wage, are like, I don't quite buy that. I'm not quite buying it. And so like I feel like there's a conversation to be had. And again, if we had a public commons or like an actual society where you could have a legitimate back and forth, it could be really productive. But because like there's no willingness to talk about class in any type of meaningful way, it becomes really hard to like think about this from like a sociological standpoint. So then people just get upset and then want to block people and like all kind of other shit. And I'm just like, that's not doing that. It might make you feel better, but it's not doing anything. But you could do something. You could try to understand. Hell, maybe you could change some minds. Maybe you could pull people to a different position in the issue if you actually like wanted to have that conversation. But I don't think people want to have that conversation. They pretty much just want conformity, which I'm like, I'm not even a big liberal, but in the like philosophical sense. But like one thing that I do appreciate about liberalism is this emphasis that people should be able to become individuals in whatever unique way that is, versus like trying to impose or impress upon somebody that, oh no, this is the position you should be having. Which is, I'm not against having that conversation, but I would rather do that in a rational, reasoned way as opposed to just throwing tomatoes at people.
I see what you're saying. And you're saying that Twitter or X is just not the platform to have that conversation.
No, it's just like you can't really have a nuance. It's like that's not what the app is designed for. So I think medium really matters. That's not to say that you can't have reasonable or like otherwise meaningful conversations on Twitter. I've had some, but like to me, those are the exceptions, not the rule. Most people just are on there for entertainment purposes, and it's much more entertaining to like dunk on somebody than it is to actually try to understand their position in like a serious way. And so, not saying it's impossible, but like that's not what the app is for.
Also, the V, I love how this, versus was our topic. What?
Oh, wow, that was entirely unplanned. I did not even think about that.
Oh, okay. Anywho, yeah, I was just really interested in what you had to say on this topic, and I wanted to extend this to the audience as well. So I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on Swiss Beats and Timberland selling out to some people. Does it bother you? Do you feel that it affects you? What's the book again?
Yeah, the name of the book is called The Black Bourgeoisie. by E. Franklin Fraser, who was a Black sociologist who wrote in the mid 20th century about a ton of stuff. He wrote about the Black church, about class differences, about the educations, all type of stuff. But anyway, this is, in my view, like the seminal book on like class differences in America, because people don't like to talk about it. It's just like even Black scholars don't like to talk about it. Or if they do, it's like very at arm's length. It's like what can we do to be a cohesive unit again? And I'm just like, again, nostalgia is gonna kill us if we don't like start thinking about new ways of being.
I know. You hate nostalgia.
I don't hate nostalgia. It's just that nostalgia is dangerous. Like you got to be careful. What Monique said, you got to be tricky. You got to watch them. I feel like you got to watch nostalgia because it'd be tricky. Like nostalgia can make you look backward way too much, and I think that's kind of the downside. Is that one of my favorite quotes is the only thing good about the good old days is that they're gone, which is a little bit hyperbolic, but it's just like a reflection of stop trying to relive the past because you can't, and so rather try to think about the world that you want to construct as opposed to a world you want to go back to, which you can never go back to.
Well, with that, where can they find you?
The usual Twitter, JAY, Tiger Fan, also on Instagram.
And thank you for your wise words. I learned something every Poli-Sci episode, y'all.
One of my favorite things to do.
So with that, make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see y'all for the next topic. Bye.